joists.
Yeah, circular saw and joists, but hand-hewn summer beam. And that's white oak. It's in very nice shape, very nice shape. Another one. Huh.
What's going on over here?
Yeah, now this is fire damage. This is definitely fire damage. Is there a record known of the fire damage? No question about it. That's fire damage. It's distinct. You can see the burn, you can see the char, see how the bottom of this is burning all the pieces. This is fire damage here. So this is not deterioration. As a matter of fact, one of the things that people are little aware of is the fact that once you have a fire, whatever's left after the fire is more rot resistant than what you had before. It may not be structurally sound, but it's more rot resistance once it's been burned. Yeah, definitely has been a fire in here.
Given the lack of ventilation down here, I'm surprised that, things at the floor doesn't look as good as they do.
Yeah, they are. There's some sample deterioration. And if you look over here, whoop, I don't flash it. Okay. Now this you would look at and you would think, well, gosh, this is in trouble. Look, it's falling apart. This is simply sapwood deterioration here. That's what that is. It's not structural deterioration. Now that said, to bring this up to today's codes, because one of the things that building inspectors and engineers know is gravity has gotten quite a bit worse than it used to be. And so in order to bring it up to today's codes, these joists probably would not pass today's building codes. It would probably need to be reinforced to make it handle the floor loading capabilities. Now, then of course the fire damaged area would definitely need to have some work done. So the thing to see is how much more damage was done by the fire. Because see, what I'm looking at here, if you look at the bottom of this flooring, we have charred flooring right there. That's a charred flooring.
Very, very clearly.
Yep. And then right here, the charring, the floorboard's gone. So this is all replaced flooring here. From here over is all replaced flooring.
I looked at the Iowa building inventory form and there's no mention in there of the fire.
And here we have it too. So
You mentioned the other fires, or
this,
the other issues. But
this pocket is fire damage.
Yeah.
This pocket is new replacement.
Yeah.
Yep. So we definitely have evidence of a fire having happened in here. And it must not have been a significant fire because we would have lost more of the floor frame if we had a significant fire. So I think the fire that did exist in here was gotten under control relatively quickly, but it did get pretty hot. It did get pretty hot.
It melted the paint.
Pardon?
The paint is melted, or
Yeah.
that just happens over time?
Well, there's a number of things that are going on there. When a fire attacks this type of wood, it does very radical, quick case hardening of the surface of the wood. The wood is much, much harder than it was before. And so, but it also loses its bond. So it'll come off in big flakes like that.
Yeah.
Okay, now the really positive thing so far anyways, is I'm finding very little evidence of significant use of Portland cement. There is some, but it's most of the mortar. See, if you look at where that's right here, this is an indication that the walls are still bedded on lime mortar. And I'll tell you straight up, I am impressed with how well this bedding is held up. That bedding either has been tuck pointed properly, or it's the water here, the drainage around the building is good, or the water table is low, because we've got very, very good content of lime mortar bedding. Yeah, we do have some Portland. A lot of the veneer is Portland.
This plaster appears to be a lime plaster too. Look over there and it's pretty soft.
Now, one of the problems that you have in buildings like this, and we can see it evidenced here. If we look around the bottom of the wall, look around the bottom of the wall, we see that here we have some deterioration of the lime wash, okay, and we see moisture, okay. Now, that actually is the product of what we're standing on, because the concrete floor, when it's put in, concrete floor is a moisture barrier. So what happens is as the moisture in the ground tries to rise up, which is a natural process, it becomes barriered by this floor, and so the water concentrates and it begins to saturate the bottoms of the walls and work up the bottom of the walls. It's called rising damp, is what that's called. The concrete floors cause rising damp all the time. It has not done significant damage as far as foundation goes. I'm impressed with the foundation so far.
And the floor joists do go into joist pockets in the brickwork, but they do not appear to be deteriorated.
Right. Yeah, another indication that the moisture balance of the building is good. We're not seeing anything going on there. But that lime is very healthy, and I see that's the other reason that I was suggesting that we're somehow of the concept of turning this into a trade school and teach historic preservation, historic conservation work. That's one of the things that people could begin to learn, and that's the fact that what this building really needs is to get back to its original ability to breathe. Because when they encased it in Portland cement, they stopped it from being able to breathe. Prior to that, the building could breathe. And it's very high lime content mortar. This is high quality construction. Look at the color of that mortar. That bedding is very high lime content. And lime is expensive stuff, and it's very high lime content. So this is a well-constructed building. Here we have more evidence here of moisture in the joists.
See, and in this room, as Rudy was saying, a rising damp is just coming up through the dirt and it's condensing on the underside of the flooring, the subflooring, and
More water damage here. We may have a drainage problem here. We're getting more bedding loss. We've got some stone that was knocked out when they stuck that window in there. But we do have a little bit more damage here. I think part of the problem too that I noticed yesterday is the fact that there are no downspouts or gutters on the building at all.
no, there are none.
And it looks as though it was originally built for box gutters and then the roof was reframed, is what it appears to be.
Yes, the historic photographs show no evidence of any kind of guttering or water distribution system at all.
We were looking at a building that had major foundation problems. This wall would not be plumb. And this wall is still very, very nicely plumbed. Just the slightest bit of aging. It's in nice shape. And see the batter in it? It's definitely thicker at the bottom than it is at the top. But we do have moisture here. Yep, we do have moisture
Yeah,
here.
it's kind of fuzzy.
Yeah. Quite a bit of moisture in some of the places in here. And my guess is this moisture is not just coming from down here. I think it's also coming from up.
Hey, Rudy, did you notice there's a lot of unburned lime in this?
I saw it last night at the bar that we were at having supper. Yeah, there's quite a bit of it in here. Yeah. Yeah.
But it's really amazing. I mean, this wall is in amazingly good shape.
They're in incredible good shape. The bedding is, I mean, literally the bedding is probably, I would say, 85%, maybe even 90% intact. It's very, very good shape. To realize too, when you're talking about the springiness, obviously we've got some failures and some patches here. This moisture problem has been going on for a while.
There's a beam there that looks pretty cracked.
Yeah, we got we have some joist damage. But the thing you need to realize about historic floors is that the standards of deflection that we use today to decide if a floor is springy or not are significantly stricter than they were when these buildings were being built. And so these buildings, when it was brand new, when you walked around in the building, the floor would have been springy. True. Okay, well, all the horrible problems that I've been hearing about are not apparent in the basement. Yes, the floor needs some work, but the building is 1869. A little bit of subsidence, settlement, cracking right here in the foundation, you can see. Okay.
Is that significant?
It's significant if it's ignored. Determination should be made as to what's actually happening here. And as a cursory inspection, I can't tell you what's happening. This is a major bearing point. Okay, we have a summer beam coming down right here, so a lot of the loads of the building are coming down. But the other thing that you need to realize is if you stand here and look at it, we've also had some major modifications been done to this foundation. So this wall doesn't have the same structural stability. I mean, you can't tell what's inside the walls, so realistically, understanding what's going on in the building, the amount of information you can get at this level and at the next level is much more limited than the information you can get in the basement and in the attic and on the exterior. Okay, there's just a lot less because what you have in here is the enclosure fabric that's used, and we already know that this is not original fabric, maybe any of it. Okay, so the amount you can glean from this, the things you can glean from the inside of the building are, is the plaster historic or is it replaced? Okay. Okay.
Come in.
Okay. So if we know the walls are plaster, which means like the ceiling we looked at down there with the last strip and the plaster on it. Okay. If we know the walls are plaster, the next thing we want to do is we want to stand here. We want to look around the building, which has been vacant for 3 years now.
5.
5
Close
years.
to 5. Yeah.
Okay, 5 years now. Okay. I can't see one fresh crack or separation in the plaster work or the trim work standing where we are at all. None. Anyone else? No. Okay. Now, if a building is vacant, and if I remember correctly, you told me no. Was Ann, is that who we met last night?
Mary or?
No, Mary. Sorry, I'm not any good with names. I'm not bad with buildings, I'm not terrible with names. Mary, if I remember correctly, she said that last winter you had like 5 days that were 22 degrees.
Below.
22 below degrees. And she, that last day she just stayed in bed.
I'm not getting up.
I'm not getting up, right? Okay. So, a vacant building, 5 days at 22 below. Okay. Not one single crack in the plaster. This just says to me, this building is stable. This building wasn't stable. It can't go through conditions like that without showing something. It's gonna say something to you. You know, this is what I don't like what's happening to me, and I'm going to show you, but it's not. It's not.
The minor cracking that you're seeing here is the result mainly of just temperature, changes in temperature over time.
Right.
You're going from minus 20 degrees
Right.
to a hot day where it's 90 or higher, and you go over that for the 5 years that it's been vacant.
Right.
You get a lot of thermal
Well,
expansion and contraction.
But it's not just the 5 years that are vacant. I mean, you know,
It's been underutilized for
It's been unheated.
Many.
It's been unheated since 1964.
Yeah.
Right.
So that's, I don't know if you were here when I pointed this out. I've never seen this before. I've heard of it, but I've never seen this before. These windows, these double hung windows are actually held up by straps, metal straps, instead of sash board.
Really?
Yeah, it's metal straps.
And you've never seen that?
Never. And so that's starting to say that maybe Rudy's wrong, because this window has strap, this window does not, this window has strap, this window does not, this window has strap, this window has strap, but maybe it was something wrong because we replaced it.
Hey, Rudy,
Yeah.
here's another indication of how stable the walls are. This is just a finish coat of the plaster that's going to crack.
Yeah.
If you go down to the brown coat here, you can see that crack stops.
You understand what you mean by brown coat?
Yeah.
Yeah, this is traditional three-step plaster. This is built up there and this is built up. The thing to be highlighted here, though, that's extremely important.
You're rather
is
destructive
that
area.
what we have here are windows that arguably are in the 100-year-old range. Okay, arguably within the 100-year-old range, and they are in incredibly good condition.
They
for
are
windows of
on
that
all
age.
4 sides. They are in beautiful condition.
Incredibly good condition for that age. So, just the fact that windows
I
like
raised
this
my
could be restored and last another 100 years is an indication of the intention of the builders when this building was built and what the potential is for the building. You have windows here. To have windows made like this today would be exorbitantly expensive. Exorbitantly expensive. These are high-class windows. These are very good windows. Deep casings are just very incredible windows.
The structural stability of the foundation also evidences everything is nice and straight along all the bearing walls.
Look at the corners and the door walls. If the building was falling down, as some people are trying to say, that would not be tight.
No,
That would not be tight.
you would have open joints everywhere.
Right, and there aren't any.
Right there.
Yeah, that's, the existing chimney goes up here,
Okay.
and the water coming off of that little gable projection that was part of the entry,
Right.
the stucco is failing, water is coming down.
So this
But
is
the
from
chimney
the,
that's in this corner is not original.
no.
That was probably added when they added the current
Rudy, you
boiler.
can poke at that again.
Okay. Now, we do have some deterioration here, but that's to be expected. The thing that's important to say, though, is that the odds of this floor being original are about 0. Part of the problem is the fact that this building, it was not done intentionally wrong. That's something that's important to understand about this. These things we're talking about was not a case of someone come in and saying, well, I know this is the wrong way to do it, I'm going to do it anyways. Instead, they thought, well, this was the right way to do it. Okay, Henry Ford himself probably perpetrated some of the greatest damage to historic buildings in the history of America when he decided to tell everybody Portland cement was the magic elixir. Portland cement's good for everything, okay? Between him and Thomas Edison, they just marketed Portland cement all over the place. So what we've got now is a building that is sealed with paint on the inside, has a finished coat of plaster over the scratch coat and brown coat. And then we have it encased in Portland cement on the outside. Okay, now what are septic tanks made of?
Cement.
Portland cement.
So the building can't breathe in essence.
Exactly. Exactly. Okay. So the fact that it has survived that is incredible. I mean, the condition of these walls is
It's been abused
amazing.
and it's survived.
And it's still surviving, yes. But this piece of trim that is leaning against the wall up there,
Be a close green, isn't it?
very close range.
Wow.
Yeah.
Is it a white one?
Yeah. Yeah. I'm almost thinking maybe it's like well, it's not sycamore, it doesn't have the flex in it. I just don't know the species here. But the thing, though, that is interesting about this, to me anyways, is that all these nails that we see here,
I'll swing by and talk to
these
you
are cut
in just a
nails,
few minutes here.
and these are wire nails. So this
Thanks,
piece of trim survived the transition because here's the cut nails, which would indicate the early date.
Probably late 19th century or maybe original construction.
Or original construction potentially, and here's wire nails from when the piece was repaired, replaced, maybe they took it off and did some plaster work, put it back on again. Okay. We do definitely have evidence of very early trim that still exists here in this building, very early trim. And I can't identify this species of wood, but it would not be a bad idea to maybe send a sample of it to the Forest Products Laboratory and ask them to identify it. It is extremely dense, and it's a high likelihood that this is old growth wood that's in the trim. One of the things that's important for us to begin to understand here is that any building that's built as long ago as 1869, the chances of it surviving until 2014 without modifications is about nil.
Of course.
Okay.
Of course.
Where you question whether or not it's worth taking the time to go back and restore a historic building often has a lot to do with how much was done to it and how it was done to it over time, okay? And what you find is that things that were done up until the mid-20th century were typically done in what I refer to as neoclassical style. They were at least trying to do it the old way, even if they weren't exactly doing it the old way. Once we got into the mid-20th century, we decided to abandon all that and just, we've got better ways of doing all this
Paper
stuff.
over, yes.
And so what happened to buildings is they became buried in garbage. And what we're standing here looking at is a time capsule, because this building has been modified. But it was modified when they were doing modifications well, okay? You notice I didn't use the word right.
My wife and you've been through a lot of trouble. She's the same way.
And a little vandalism. This is another floor.
You think this is original?
I think this is original.
Modern
Quarters arm. Original.
It must be at the outside, the weather face of the brick wall, right at the outside of the cornice.
You're not seeing anything inside?
It is right up to the inside of the
This
wall.
little chimney.
Mm-hmm.
Seems tight.
Okay.
So you're not seeing any major problems up here?
No.
I'm surprised. I thought there'd be more signs of dampness up here.
I can't believe the size of these, what do you call them, the going across. Those had to be some
That's
huge,
the bottom cord.
they had to be some huge trees.
Yeah, that's the bottom cords of the trusses. That's why they have a clear span downstairs, because they had that big timber to run the rods down through. Back to the brick exterior and rebuilt the bricks. And the reason is that the stucco is made out of Portland cement. You know what they make septic tanks out of? Portland cement, because they hold water. Okay. So by encasing this in Portland cement, what it's done is it's caused the natural ability of the building to breathe to be very compromised. And it has a lot to do with why we're seeing as much moisture as we are in the basement. The building just can't breathe. And so slowly, methodically taking that plaster back off again, repointing the bricks. The bricks appear to be in good shape. Anything that I can see of them, the bricks are in good shape. And the mortar is probably some of the best bedding that I've seen in a long, long time. The quality of the bedding here, like you said, the aggregate, the sand are very high quality. The lime content is very high. So it doesn't even need repointing necessarily, but I think in the process of doing that, that's what I would recommend. I'm Christian. I'm president of the Christian and Son Incorporated, a company my wife and I run together. I have in the past been the president of the Timber Framers Guild. I've been the executive director of the Preservation Trades Network, and I've been the president of Friends of Ohio Barns, and I have been part of the steering committee for the Traditional Timber Frame Research and Advisory Committee. I'm kind of a nonprofit junkie, but in reality my profession is taking care of historic buildings and studying my particular trade, which is timber framing, as extensively as I can so that I can understand all of the knowledge that I could possibly absorb in my life. So to me it was a real joy to be able to come and look at this building and see how they had done the work in 1869 in Iowa, which I've never looked at an 1869 Iowa building before. I'm very impressed with the foundation, extremely strong, very durable, limestone foundation, bedded well in lime-based mortar. Very little work has been done to incorporate Portland cement on the inside. Obviously there is on the outside, but it does not appear to have done any damage at all to speak of. The windows are all wood windows. Some of them are late 20th century, some are early 20th century, but none of them are replacement windows, which is a great place to start on doing the window restorations. The roof system is incredibly structurally sound. For a building that old and the different types of roof systems that would have been incorporated over the years, it has done a very good job, each one of those systems, of keeping it dry so that there isn't damage from rot or deterioration. So from my perspective, it's a building that was built well to begin with. It was meant to show people what a well-built building looks like. It was clearly decorated at very high-end standards so that people could get the feeling of what a really quality building was when they walked into it. Obviously, it was meant to incorporate the workmanship that is at the highest level into everything that was done. And I think the thing that really struck me was that when they did come in 50 years later, roughly, and make modifications to the building, they did it in the style of and with great respect for the people that did the work in the first place. So we haven't seen what so many buildings see, which is tampering with them, using modern materials and doing things that are irreversible. That did not occur with that building. So it's very sound, in my opinion, in very good condition. And I think a new use needs to be found for it because it's deserving of it.
My name is Gary Goyette. I'm a restoration preservation consultant craftsman, reside in Gothenburg, Iowa. And I've been involved in the restoration preservation of historic structures since 1978. I spent some time as restoration superintendent at Old World, Wisconsin. I was there 14 years. I worked as a member of the Taliesin Preservation Commission for 2 years, and had a small private restoration contracting firm in the Milwaukee metropolitan area for 14 years. I've spent the last 30 years of my life plus doing restoration work on historic structures. And I certainly concur with everything Rudy said. I was especially impressed by the structural integrity of the building, both from the foundation, as Rudy said, high content lime mortar, very little repair work done with modern Portland cement. The exterior wall system, very sound, and I certainly would recommend retaining the building in its current location, finding an adaptive use for it. I also was very impressed by, reading a little bit about the history of the building, is that the building has been a part of this community, and the funds for constructing the building were raised by the members of the community, not by the Baptist organization, the Baptist Seminary organization. And it's a very integral part of the community, and it certainly is a building that is subject to good rehabilitation and preferably on-site. Moving the building could present some problems in the fact that it would increase the cost considerably due to the size and height of the building, and setting a masonry building like that on top of a new modern foundation also could be an issue. But I think it's a very, very exceptionally good building.